What is going on, everybody? It's yours truly, Connor, aka OKayFabe here. Welcome back to another edition of the Smackdown ReBound right here on OneWrestling.com. And, of course, One Wrestling Video's YouTube channel, where we cover everything that happened in this week's edition of Smackdown Live. Of course, we're talking about the results from November the 7th, 2017, as we have a major change in championships. The Smackdown Tag Team titles are on the line, and a lot of craziness heading into Survivor Series. Is SmackDown under siege, or is there just a lot of craziness going on? Now, before we get into the results and the review of this week's show, don't forget, guys, I always love to hear what you guys have to say, so make sure to leave your thoughts on this week's SmackDown down in the comment section below. Make sure if you guys haven't done so already, make sure you subscribe to One Wrestling Video for all your 24/7 pro wrestling news talk. Of course, got Raw results, SmackDown, NXT, TNA, Impact Wrestling, and, of course, the legendary, the iconic Bill Apter with his Apter Chat every so often. Very pleasure to be associated here with One Wrestling. Of course, guys, make sure you follow myself and the entire OneWrestling.com family, including myself at OKayFabe, Big Ray Show at Big Ray Show, the Big Slam Nation, all the members, and, of course, the legendary, the iconic Mr. Bill Apter at Apter One Wrestling over on Twitter. All the social media links are in the description box below. While you're down there, make sure you hit that like button as well, as, of course, we love to hear you guys' thoughts, feedbacks, and opinions on this week's SmackDown Live. SmackDown kicked off this week with the commissioner, Shane McMahon, and talking about how he's basically rallying the troops and getting everything ready for Survivor Series, and how Raw is taking things personal, and at Survivor Series he's going to confront Kurt Angle, especially what happened with Daniel Bryan, who has been announced that he will make his return to SmackDown Live next week's show. And, of course, speaking of fighters, he decides to bring out three individuals who were out last week and last night, who took action in their own hands, and that is, of course, the New Day. He commends them for what they did to Monday Night Raw, even though they didn't mean to inadvertently cause a Raw tag team title change. But, of course, McMahon praised them all over and says that Raw's not going to do anything about it. And, of course, this is exactly what Shane was talking about. New Day are all about Team Blue, and he sees that, and he starts to set up the New Day Rocks gimmick. But, of course, that's when Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn enters. Owens says that this was the stupidest, most painful thing he's seen in his life, and Sami hates to break it to Shane, but it's not cool. They should probably never dance with the New Day ever again. Of course, this spawns a back-and-forth moment between Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens and the New Day as they keep going back and forth, exchanging blows. Kofi Kingston even calling Sami Zayn a paperboy at some point, but eventually this does lead to Shane McMahon setting up an awesome singles action between Sami Zayn and Kofi Kingston. This was a great way to kick off SmackDown this week. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was a great matchup between both men. It was really fun. Kofi Kingston seemed to be honestly getting a lot of the offense for the majority of this matchup, more so than I thought. Sami Zayn did able to cut some counters and come back in for a couple of moves here and there, but for the most part, it felt like Kofi Kingston really dominated this matchup, and I'm really looking forward to exactly what's going to happen with Shane, Kevin Owens, and Sami Zayn heading into and beyond Survivor Series in just a week from this Sunday. It should be fun. Back from the commercial break, they start to really keep things going back and forth. Blue Thunder Driver counters, and, of course, Kofi Kingston kicks out. But Kofi actually wins via pinfall with a double jump crossbody, and Kevin Owens just quickly right on top of him as soon as the bell rang. But, of course, Big E and Xavier Woods able to chase them out to avoid any further damage, as we continue also hyping up the main event between the modern-day Maharaja, Jinder Mahal, and AJ Styles for the WWE Championship. We also find out that Rusev will be taking on Randy Orton, and if Rusev wins, he gets a spot on Team Blue for for Survivor Series, and also James Ellsworth against Becky Lynch in one-on-one action. I'm gonna say I'm just gonna put my money on Becky. I'm no Nostradamus here, but I think if you're going to put money down on anyone, it's going to be Becky Lynch. Anyway, we actually roll right into the Randy Orton-Rusev match. And this matchup was actually shorter than I expected. And it's kind of disheartening a little bit because I like Randy Orton, I like Rusev, I think, any time with the exception of SummerSlam, which lasted only a few moments. I actually thoroughly enjoyed their match at No Mercy, which was really one of the first times we got to see the two of them really go in a longer match and a longer program. And it's unfortunate because Rusev just succumbs to, once again, the RKO, and Rusev is not granted a spot on Team SmackDown for Survivor Series, which does beg the question, who is going to be that fifth person? I have sneaking suspicion that possibly we might see Kevin Owens inject himself into the Team SmackDown for Survivor Series, but I still think in the heart of hearts, and it's a gut feeling here, I feel like Kevin Owens is still just a little resistant still a little agitated at Shane for what happened with everything. And so I think Kevin Owens might screw over Shane McMahon in Survivor Series. Don't quote me on that, but I have a feeling come hell or high water, KO is going to screw Shane McMahon at Survivor Series. It's a hunch. We see some more hype up and build up with James Ellsworth with Becky Lynch, where basically talking about how men are better than women. That's, I'm sure, going to give you some brownie points when you have this matchup, especially when the entire women's division for SmackDown Live is surrounding the ring. Now, I actually enjoyed this because as much as Becky Lynch versus James Ellsworth is not going to be your catch-as-catch-can wrestling matchup, of course, it's going to be more of an entertainment value. I felt like there was a little bit of a missed opportunity here because there's been a lot of buildup for this for quite some time. They've done little things here and there with Becky Lynch and Ellsworth for a while. And unfortunately, I feel like that they could have really kind of pushed it a little bit further, especially where if you're not really going to have a whole lot of focus on the SmackDown women because they're all on the same page, and understandably so heading into Survivor Series, you need to create some sort of, you know, something to carry the women going into Survivor Series. And I think that Ellsworth would have been a great little foil point to kind of carry them through until we get past the brand supremacy warfare that is Survivor Series. And I felt like it could have, I mean, I give them credit for building it up on Twitter a little bit, but again, I feel like this has been going on for so long that they could have really just like let it go and just let it really, I felt, bottom line, I feel like it could have been built and presented a little higher than what we got on SmackDown. But even what we got on SmackDown was still fun and entertaining as all hell. I can't deny that. Ellsworth was just a fun, he did get some offense on Becky Lynch, which was actually surprising, and it wasn't just all Becky Lynch with James Ellsworth being a coward. Don't get me wrong, James Ellsworth was a coward at several points, but it was still entertaining and fun to watch. James Ellsworth tried to roll out after being just pummeled by Becky Lynch at one point, but unfortunately, SmackDown Women's Division wasn't let that happen. With the exception of Carmella, who was on the other side of the ring, Ellsworth tried to roll out, but Charlotte, Tamina, and everybody else stopped him, throwing back him in the ring, trying to applaud, like beg and plead, and even shake hands, shades of course, Ric Flair, and goes to hug Becky Lynch. This, of course, Becky just snaps him into the disarmor, or as Corey Graves pointed out, the disarm him, and quickly taps out. Carmella comes into the ring to confront Becky Lynch and starts yelling at her, only to super kick James Ellsworth and brush him off. And I might have a hunt and a sneaking suspicion that might be the last time we see James Ellsworth, unfortunately. And if there's any way to go out, it's by getting kicked by the women's Money in the Bank. I mean, yeah, what other better way would there be to go out? I mean, you can't argue that James Ellsworth's, time in WWE hasn't been monumental. I mean, from a guy who presumably was supposed to be a one-shot deal against Braun Strowman, has really had a fun time. So I'm not sure, I can't confirm whether or not this is the last time we see James Ellsworth. It seems fitting because it's been a year since we've had him on the main roster. I'm just saying that's a pretty interesting, fun way to go. But either way, very interesting twist. But it looks like Ellsworth is done as far as the women's division is concerned. Maybe we see him in 205 Live. Who knows? We get back from the commercial break, and Charlotte Flair's actually talking to Shane. Natalia rolls in and says, "Don't worry, Shane. I got this covered for you. Not only will I beat Alexa Bliss in Survivor Series, but I'll do you one better. I will gladly take Charlotte's place at Team Survivor for SmackDown and for Survivor Series." Charlotte's like, "What are you talking about?" Shane says, "Actually, Natalia, we got to go back to Hell in the Cell. So you actually used a chair to get yourself disqualified in your match with Charlotte. And so in the interest of fairness, Charlotte's getting a rematch for the Women's Championship next week on SmackDown." Now, the thing is, and I've been saying this on a couple of my reviews, is that the thing I like about the Survivor Series build between Raw and SmackDown is that they're actually giving us championship matches on television. And as we find out, not only do we have the women's title next week, but we also get announced that Baron Corbin will be defending the U.S. title against Sin Cara. So with the exception of the Universal and the Cruiserweight Championship, every championship from both brands has been or will be defended on TV, which is great. It gives a little extra bump and a boost up. Sometimes, though, it feels a little bit predictable because we feel like WWE is not going to change the card, and they've already got kind of like their plan and set in stone as far as what's going to happen at the pay-per-view. And boy howdy was I ever wrong. Between Monday Night Raw and, of course, what happens later on the main event, I am so wrong, and I'm glad I'm wrong, because that gives a level of unpredictability and makes it uncertain. You don't know what's going to happen, and I love that. So you may think you know what's going to happen on SmackDown, but realistically, they might throw you a curveball. And Survivor Series has changed quite drastically this week, and it's going to be interesting to see exactly what goes down next week. Now, speaking of championships, the SmackDown Tag Team titles are on the line as the Usos defend against Chad Gable, Shelton Benjamin. Usos saying welcome to the Uso Penitentiary, even mocking Chad Gable and Jason Jordan. Excuse me, see? Chad Gable and Shelton Benjamin calling him American Alpha 2.0, slapping them, and unfortunately, the tag team match really doesn't go too far. Amidst the commercial break, we get back, and essentially Chad Gable takes out, I believe it was Jey Uso, on his knee, wiping him out, thus also the referee resulting in a 10 count, and of course that means Benjamin and Chad Gable win the matchup, but unfortunately not the tag team titles. I hope the Usos are not legitimately hurt, because, of course, that wouldn't be good heading into not only just Survivor Series, but in general overall. I think even with the switch-up of Cesaro and Sheamus to being the new Raw Tag Team Champions, I think that match against the Usos is probably going to be one of the better ones in the Raw versus SmackDown Survivor Series pay-per-view, aside from the main event, which we're going to talk about right freaking now. AJ Styles and Jinder Mahal for the WWE Championship. This might be one of, in my opinion, one of Jinder's best matches, and part of it is Jinder, but of course the other part of it is the opponent that he fought, which is of course AJ Styles. AJ Styles I give a lot of credit for making Jinder look fantastic. Interestingly enough, they did a very similar finish to what we saw in a lot of the Jinder Mahal matches between Randy Orton, Shinsuke Nakamura. AJ does a 450 splash, goes for a pin count, but the Singh brothers pull Jinder Mahal out. And I thought the referee was going to throw out the Singh brothers right there, right then, but instead, AJ is able to take out both of them, and then it actually gets hit with the Colossus, which I thought, okay, and I'm sure everybody did as well too. This is it. It's over. It's done. Finito. But AJ puts his foot on the rope. Match continues. AJ sling blades and kind of does a hangman and is able to hit the phenomenal forearm. 1, 2, 3. AJ Styles becomes the new WWE champion. And the Manchester crowd is the biggest pop between both Raw and SmackDown this entire time in Manchester. And the crowd is going nuts. Now, I could be mistaken here. You guys, of course, correct me down in the comments section below. But I do believe this is the first time. Two things happened as far as history being made for not only AJ Styles, but for, well, actually, it is for AJ Styles. AJ is the first person in 14 years to win the WWE Championship on SmackDown. And he is also the second person ever in the history of the entire company to win the major championship, the WWE Championship, overseas, outside of the United States. So huge victory for AJ Styles. This, of course, drastically changes the main event for Survivor Series now. We are now going to get Brock Lesnar versus AJ Styles, which I have to admit makes me very intrigued, especially after this match. Very intrigued as far as how that's all going to play out. Is Jinder going to get revenge? I don't know. I don't know. Brock Lesnar has not really had a big profile match against a type of individual, like a smaller, lighter, cruiserweight style-esque person like AJ Styles. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see how that all plays out. So SmackDown, in my opinion, once again delivering fantastic. But of course, guys, we want to hear your thoughts as well. What did you think of SmackDown this week? What do you think of the massive title change with AJ Styles and everything else? Let us know down in the comment section below. Make sure you subscribe to One Wrestling Video and, of course, OneWrestling.com for your 24/7 pro wrestling news website and, of course, YouTube channel. Make sure you guys, if you haven't done so already, follow us on the social media, including myself at OKayFabe, at Big Ratio, at Big Slam Nation, and, of course, the legendary, the iconic Mr. Bill Apter at Apter One Wrestling. Thank you guys again for tuning into another edition of SmackDown ReBound as we head into Survivor Series. We're going to wrap things up here. Thank you for your continued love and support. And, of course, to quote the legendary, the iconic Mr. Bill Apter, we will see you at the matches.